You're listening to the One Man and His Wilderness podcast. On the show, we hope to not only give you a better understanding of how wilderness adventure shapes our belief and trust in Christ, but how it draws us into a deeper and intimate relationship with Him. On the show, you'll hear from leaders who are utilizing wilderness adventure to make disciples of young people around the world. So sit back and enjoy the perspective of one man and his wilderness. Here's your host, Paul Wingfield.
Today's guest on the show is David Wildman. David's been married to his wife Sarah for 13 years, and they have one beautiful daughter named Fiona. David's been in full-time ministry for the last 10 years, 5 of which he served with Second Mile Adventures of Winona Lake, Indiana, and the Lord ultimately led him to starting his own nonprofit, Fully Packed Adventure Ministries. David also helped launch a young adult ministry with his local church, Brookwood Church. David loves to use the outdoors as a means to connect, grow, and worship together with the young people that he serves. All right. David Wildman, welcome to the show, man. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Man, it is my privilege and my pleasure to talk with you today. I kind of gave a little intro there before we got the show started, but man, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. I mean, what makes up the wild man, David?
the living up to that last name has always been a challenge. There's definitely been a Wildman will do it. His last name, he'll go jump off the cliff, he'll go do this. And so so adventure has kind of been in my blood for a long time. Whether I wanted it or not, the last name kind of gave it to me. So but my name's David Wildman. 30, going to be 37 here in a few weeks. So can't believe that's actually happening. So realizing I'm not as young as I used to be, but I'm still young and still got lots left in me. Married, we've been married 13 years now to Sarah, my wife. We have one kid, our daughter, and she's 5 years old. And so we were just kind of a small family, but we're happy. We consider our 2 dogs, Roxy and Hurley, as our kids too. So we're those type of people. Brought up in a little town called Winona Lake, Indiana. So for anybody that's trying to figure out where does that land in the state of Indiana, if you look at Indianapolis and South Bend and just draw a straight line to the middle between those 2 points, somewhere out there in the corn fields between those 2 cities is Winona Lake, Indiana. And so it's kind of the crossroads of the northern part of Indiana there. So family all has grown there. It's amazing when people say, I've never met a person with the last name Wildman before. And I go, that's funny because I grew up in a town where it was all Wildmans. The whole town is run basically by Wildman. So I grew up, that was just a natural thing. Lots of family, lots of just a small town, Indiana. So the youngest of 5. So I have an older brother and 3 sisters in between, and then there's me. So I was brought up by 3 sisters, and they were tough as nails. They gave everything, they gave it right back to you. If you went up and slugged them on the shoulder, man, they would knock you on your butt kind of thing. So grew up with 3 sisters, grew up on the lake, spending time out on the lake, doing the wakeboarding scene and doing all that stuff with my brother. And so we just ran around the state competing, doing wakeboarding. And so, that was it. And this is where I'm at right now. So I currently live in South Carolina, though. And we'll get into more of that, like how did you get from little Winona Lake, Indiana to upstate South Carolina kind of thing. So
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I've only wakeboarded a handful of times, but I really enjoyed it. I remember a friend of mine talked me into doing, I was probably 12 or 13. And me being me, I go big or go home. And this is the first time I'd ever got up on a wakeboard, and I hit the wake. I just tried to jump as high as I could. And I ended up just Supermaning in face planting in the water. And I forgot to let go. And the boat yanked my shoulder. Oh my gosh. I don't know if it came out of socket or what, but it hurt really bad. And that was a bad experience for me.
Yeah.
Thankfully I
Yeah.
recovered.
Yeah.
Man, that's really cool. So like growing up, lots of brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Man, like what was your childhood like? I mean, what was your kind of your family dynamics? Did you grow up in a believing home, or what was that like for you?
Yeah. We parents were both very religious. We went to Sunday church, or we went to church on Sunday. Sorry, let me say that correctly. Every Sunday. And one of the coolest thing, I think this really was the reason that I got into why I am so drawn to adventure ministry, is my parents have run we call it the ski trip. They've been running that for 40 plus years now,
Wow.
where they took local youth and they drove them all the way out to Winter Park, Colorado for spring break of a week of snow skiing or snowboarding and just being in God's word. And so I think that's where it really started, whether it really sunk in or what throughout my childhood, I don't know. So that was kind of like, this is how I got to see outdoor activity and ministry kind of put together. And so they've just been quietly doing that for 40 plus years, and they still do it to this day. I helped lead 5 years of those trips, some of the most stressful years of my life, ushering 50 plus high school students and 20 volunteers across the country in buses. And yeah, it was exciting. It was fun. So my childhood was, we went to church, we did all those things. I would say, and then also a little bit more of background from my family is that we are 1, 2, 3. I'd be the 4th generation of people that are in ministry. So we have like 3 generations of missionaries, and then I'm the most, not the only one, but my generation is still carrying on that kind of thing. So, and again, not by choice, and we'll get to that, but God has a sense of humor and he gets you there. So, pretty much up to 6th grade, loved God and was just, always went to Sunday school, did the Wednesday evening, whatever you want to call that, Wednesday night, whether it was Awanas or just Sunday school through 5th and 6th grade. And then somewhere around 7th and 8th grade, I would say more 8th grade was where I started going, what is this thing? What is Christianity? I kept doing it. I kept going to church. But I would say if anybody had met me, they would have said, that is not a Christian. He may have the cover, so to speak. He's got the book cover going, but there is nothing written on the pages. It is blank as can be, So I just kind of just took that path for the next 4 or 5 years of just, putting up a good front, but on the weekends and throughout the week, just terrorizing kind of thing. So I'll leave that to the imagination of whoever's listening to this. Typical high school student country. We had some fun. Lots of acreage and lots of farmlands to go terrorize, and we did it. So, and then it was somewhere where I realized I'm here in the Midwest. I'm 21, and I'm working for the family business. I've dropped out of college. What am I doing with my life? I'm single, stuck in the Midwest, working for the family business. Not that I want to be doing that right now. And that's kind of where I met my wife, and where my life took a different trajectory. And so that's kind of I went a little past childhood there.
Okay.
Up to college. So, but that would kind of get the listener to understand that it was a good start, and just hit a huge valley for a while there, and then have been on a pathway back out. So
yeah. Now you said you worked for your family business. Now what exactly was that?
This actually started with my grandpa. He came back from World War II. He was a pilot. I can't remember exactly what kind of pilot, but he basically transported supplies and troops up and over the mountains in China to the next location. And so he did that for a long time. And he came back from World War II and started a small dry cleaning business. And then my dad came along and started helping him with that when, he got married, and my dad took it from a dry cleaning to a uniform rental. So if listeners were wondering what's uniform rental, if you see a truck that goes down the road that says Cintas on it or Airmark, whatever those kind of things, that's the business that we're in. Today, it was first called Wildman Uniform and Linen. And now today, if you Google it, it's called Wildman Business Group. It's morphed into, I think, 5 different companies now. So
wow.
They have a uniform rental. They have corporate apparel, like shirts and branding and all that kind of stuff. First aid and safety, paper products, and also You the Fan. Some of you might have seen this where they have a hamburger flipper with the logo, like team logos in it. It's called Sportula, or Joe Journeyman, the puzzles. Somehow we ended up with that business. I don't know how, but anyways, we have it. It's happening. So if you go on like NFL.com and search Joe Journeyman and you see these puzzles, that's the Wildman business. You flip it over and it'll say Wildman Business Group, Warsaw, Indiana, whatever it is. So that's the family business. But when I was there working, it was still kind of like, is this business going to make it or not kind of thing. So I was kind of there working, just doing that. And long stories of events that happened. I ended up, let's just say, too much family in one location.
Yeah. I know about that.
Yeah. So it was one of those, like, to this day, when I wasn't there, I was very angry. But to this day, I look back and go, I'm so glad. I still want to help in any way I can for that business. And I always offer up my help to them and say, whatever you guys need, because they very much want to give back and grow people in their walk with Christ. And so I don't know where this fits and where I fit and all that, but I'm always offering that up. Like, I'm here whenever you guys are ready. I'd love to help in that aspect of the business or something. So we continue working through all that stuff. And so they keep working the hard hours and I keep doing the ministry. So
yeah, that's good. I understand that too. I worked for my dad for this past year. I just quit. I worked for him for 10 years. And did ministry and did some other work on the side. But I know what it's like to work for family. It's a challenging thing at sometimes. So I can understand and empathize with you there. And so kind of moving along from, working with this family business, like you're just feeling like, what am I doing with my life? You said you met your wife, and then that's when your life kind of really just started beginning, right? And then going on this other journey. So man, tell us a little bit about that, about when you met your wife and how you met your wife.
Yeah. So I always knew of my wife. We grew up in the same town. Families knew each other. She actually hung out with the sister closest in age to me. They were the same age and they ran around together. I was just always that bratty little brother that was always hanging around. And so I never really talked to her, but I knew who she was. She knew who I was. I ran with a different crowd than she ran. She was a cheerleader. She hates the fact that I tell people this. She was the senior varsity cheerleader. I was just the kid that did the wakeboarding thing and whatever kind of stuff. So, so our paths just didn't ever cross. And then one day, a buddy of mine hands me this note and says, "Hey, give this person a call, ask him on a date." He was actually heading off to overseas. He was a Marine. Wow. He was leaving, and he's like, I got no use for this. I'm leaving. So he hands me the number. I'm like, "Who is it?" He says, "Oh, it's Sarah Gerke." Gerke is her maiden name. I was like, all right, what the heck? She either said yes or no. I'll give her a call. What's the worst? And I hadn't talked to her probably since, I don't know when. I couldn't have told you the last time I talked to her. And so I called her up. We went on a date, and yeah, now 14 years since that date, uh, we're
Wow.
we're still together. So it's not quite a high school sweetheart story, but
Yeah.
kind of along those lines of like we knew each other through high school and stuff. And so, but on the second date, this is where my life takes a wicked hard right. I would say a hairpin hard right, like back the other way. Second date, she just blurts it out. Hey, are you going to be a man after Christ? And I'm like stunned, like sitting in her apartment going, I don't know how to answer this other than I want another date. So I'm going to lie through my teeth and tell her, yes, I'm going to be a man after God, in which I do. And she's all, happy and giddy. And I'm just like, I just flat out lied to this girl so I could get another date. And because I wasn't living in that life. I believed in him. I knew who he was. I went to church, but I wasn't living a life for Christ.
Yeah.
I wasn't following him. And so that night I drive home from, she lived in Fort Wayne. I lived obviously in Winona Lake, 40-minute drive through the country, summer night, windows down. I'm just cruising through the country, and it hits me. And I just have this conversation with God, and I go, God, use me. I just lied to this girl.
Yeah.
I am here. Use me however you want. Little did I know, go ahead, use me. That's where he really just totally destroyed my life, and for a good way of all right, you're going to be my servant from here on out, and you're going to be my hands and feet, and we're going to go on a journey together here. And from that day on, it's been a journey of highs and lows, but all great stuff, for his glory. So,
Man, that's amazing and start dating this girl, and on the second date, just come right out with this truth of listen, you're either going to be after Jesus or you're not going on dates with me. Man, hey, that is a good thing that you stuck with it, and whether you were lying or not, you found a good woman. So man, hey, she's a saint. That's amazing. So you have this conversation, man, you're just leaving her house, you're just talking to God and having this heart to heart. And man, he just, in this powerful way, says, okay, yeah, you put your money where your mouth is, man. So what did that look like after that, as you began to just kind of give yourself over to the Lord to do his will and to walk in a manner worthy to what he was calling you to? I think the question is, what was he calling you to? So what was the next steps for you?
I really didn't know. I just kind of committed that and didn't really do anything about it though. And so from that point on, we get engaged. A year later, we get married. And this is the part that I didn't tell the listeners. This is where it gets really rocky. A year later, I get fired from the family business. My dad takes me to lunch and says, we're just going to have you go do something else for a while. You're the lowest common denominator right now. We just can't have this another person here. So you go to figure out what you want to do. And so I was kind of well, shoot, I'm married and now no job. And that's where it's all right, well, I got to finish my degree. So I get into doing that. And while I'm doing that, I decide my dad starts this nonprofit called Second Mile Adventures. And it was just a group of good old boys that were just having some fun on bikes and equipping each other and sharing the word. And so I was like, hey, I'll help you do some paperwork part-time, and that'll get me through college. And so I did that, not knowing that God's snickering. You're going my direction now, son. And so I finished my degree, and before I know it, I'm full-time doing ministry. And I would say, So I was 5 years with Second Mile Adventures, and the first 2 years were more like administrative for them, helping them, get kind of set up administratively. And then the last 3 were really like starting to do actual ministry, setting up teams of volunteers, equipping them. And then that's where the 5 year splits. And I come up with this crazy, you call it crazy, whatever you want to call it, idea of like, let's start an adventure ministry chapter-based nonprofit wing of this thing. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. I was like, what? So because we had taken the ministry from, a couple guys to full blown, we had 5 key trips, and all of them were just maxing out waiting lists. And I was like, I don't know what else to do with all these people. Like, we have to figure out some way to set up little pockets where they can replicate this thing and do their trips with, break the groups into smaller groups kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. And so I left, and that's where God kind of convicted me and said, no, I said, you go and do it. I didn't say you make them do it. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm supposed to go. You got to tell me where to go, God. And we kept hearing of Greenville, South Carolina. And I was like, I don't know where this place is. So we drove down, we looked at it, and I was like, all right, I guess this is the place we're going to be. We got mountains. We're down in the South. We can pretty much do adventure stuff year round. I'm not a big snow guy, although I lived in Indiana. I hate the snow.
Yeah.
So that was appeal to me, to be like in a climate in the winter where I can still be outdoors and stuff. And so we've been doing that for 5 years. We got a few chapters going right now. This year's been unique in that COVID's kind of wiped out some things. So we're kind of just scrapping this year and hoping for the best. And just, I put everybody on the, like, just do whatever you can do for the rest of this year. Like, don't try to plan big things, because it's going to get ripped out from under you, basically. So do what you can, get out, connect with people, grassroots ministry kind of thing, one-on-one. And so that's where we're at. And then the side thing that's been happening is the Brookwood Church here in Simpsonville, South Carolina. I've been helping them with a young adults ministry, the ages 18 to 29. And so that's been fun to work with them and just give them a place to connect and be a part of the church. And it's amazing when you do that, like, they just show up. Like, all these people were saying they're disappearing. It's like, well, you just got to give them a place, and they'll become your most valuable asset here. So, and that's what we've been doing. So that's been awesome. So that's given me some opportunities to kind of start preaching and doing that, which has been I'm not a big large group speaker.
Sure.
So that's really challenged me, and I've gotten better at that. So I used to be like, I would be sweating buckets if I walked into a room and there was like 50 people and I had to speak in front of them. I would just be like pouring sweat, like, I don't know what to say now all of a sudden. So
that's a real fear for sure. And so with this, with your ministry, right, Fully Packed, what, through that time of you developing this and developing these chapters, kind of what was that process like as you were seeking out, I guess, a leader for each chapter, and how are you kind of walking with those guys and equipping them?
So backing up a little bit, when I investigated this, I checked in with a organization called Snowboarders and Skiers for Christ. They're out of Denver, Colorado right now, but they have like deep roots into YWAM and all this other stuff. And so I asked them they do chapter based. And so I got some basic understanding of how to kind of do this thing. And he just said, it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of just conversations, a lot of just upkeep kind of thing. And so we went into it like, we're not going to go chasing after people. we want people that are drawn to the ministry and want to be doing this. Because I could have 10 people that I can sign up, but I'd rather have 2 that are full on dedicated and ready to do this thing. And so we went at it from that standpoint, and man, God's just been bringing them. And we've had a few already show up and walk away from it. Just life got busy for them, and they just couldn't do it at that time, and which is fine. They still follow along, and they're still out doing what they're doing. But we've been having, the people that do show up, it's God has directed them to us. And so that's made it a little bit easier, in that they're drawn to it and want to be there and want to be helping out, kind of thing. And so, but it's a challenge every day to be like, okay, I got to follow up and get through everybody. And so that becomes a challenge in itself. So, yeah, sorry, dog just busted in here.
You're good.
But it's been a journey, and I've learned so much just from those guys too, just watching them walk with people and their walk with Christ. It's grown me. So it's kind of a twofold thing of like, I get to grow as you are growing, kind of thing. So so they bring new life into my walk with Christ. So
man, that's so good. And I love like what you said. You said like you're not looking for people that just show up. You're looking for those people that are taking those steps and are actively like pursuing this, because like once they have that and just that motivation in their heart, like they're going to be a good leader. And I think to the disciples, when Jesus chooses his disciples, like he didn't choose these people that were, high up in society. He didn't go after the Pharisees. He went after these men who were willing to obey and just willing to be there and recognized their need for a savior, recognized their need for somebody to pour into them. And then look where the church is today because of these 11 men's faithfulness. So, and you're right. There are people that are going to walk away. We're going to have Judases in ministry. But we still have to be willing to wash their feet as well, right? So man, that's super cool and super interesting. So just tell everybody a little bit about what your ministry does and what you focused on.
So Fully Packed Adventure Ministry is a chapter-based ministry, but at the core of it is discipleship and helping people have a solid biblical foundation. And so the adventures are great, but those are only like a drop in the bucket of what the entire organization's about. We've been just gifted with an amazing guy by the name of Matthew Allen. He is a pastor. He was a former missionary in Honduras, training up pastors down there. The guy is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the Bible. And so I've been able to spend time with him, right alongside him. He teaches as he's writing and talking. And so it's just been amazing. It's always a good time whenever I'm around him. And so he helped us put together our foundation book. And so we made the choice. Do we take what someone else has already done and adapt it or put it in for our organization, or do we create our own? And so we decided we're going to create our own material, which then so the first year was just creating this material. We did no adventures. We did nothing. We just simply set up the organization and prepared this material. And the material is great because it's broken up into 4 modules, and it just walks you through from beginning, obviously creation, to what's the biblical narrative, to all the way to the point where, okay, now you're going to take all that and start your own personal ministry. What does it look like? And here are examples in the Bible of what personal ministry looked like back then and how we can replicate that and not just try to wing it here. There's actual models in scripture that shows how we can do these things. And so So it's been we've been able to help kind of put together. This year we're obviously not going to do any of these. They're called residential leadership training, so we call them RLTs, where we go to the chapter and ask them, do you have one or two people that you feel could benefit from this? And we'll spend an intensive weekend with them going through the foundation material. And then this year, it's been a little rocky, but we're figuring it out. We just started online trainings. So Matt's been hopping on there and walking people through each one of these like different parts of the modules. And so we're going to get that online training going so that we build up a library of Matt teaching these modules, and then chapter leaders can grab those, or anybody for that, or anybody that lands on our page can go, oh my goodness, there's a video and someone actually teaching this. We can take that and talk through this kind of thing. And so we're creating content for people in the adventure or ministry. Doesn't have to be adventure. Right. But specifically our heart goes to those that are Bible loving, outdoor enthusiasts kind of people that want to take the two and put them together and be able to take those things and use them in their personal ministry wherever they're at. And so so we're still in its infancy here. We have a long ways to go, lots more to do, and I'm excited for the future of where this could go. But if God only wants it to be as big as it is now, then that's what we'll be. You know, and it'll be beautiful. But if he wants it bigger, then we'll figure it out along the way. So.
Man, I love your heart behind that. Just, man, that's a lot of humility there. Just, man, whatever God wants, it's his. Man, that's a great sign of a great leader. So, man, I commend you for that. As you're talking about, you have your fully packed adventure ministries that you've been utilizing, where people are coming and you're taking them bike packing. And going on trips like that for extended trips, treks, we call it a trek and hiking, but 100 miles, like you're going a long ways. How have you taken your nonprofit here with Fully Packed, and how are you starting to kind of merge that with your role with these young adults at your church? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's been a process, I'll say, of like not getting caught up in the, flashy programming church kind of thing. You get in there, you have access to all this stuff that you didn't at a nonprofit, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's like someone just handed you a Red Bull and what are those pixie sticks, and you just are like, I can't handle it anymore. I got a computer, I got rooms, I got lights, I got all this stuff I can do and use, and so it's been kind of one of those like self-check all the time, like, hold on, we don't need to make it so big, we can do amazing things just by teaching the word. And so we've been able to, this will be this financial year, so we run October to September 30th, will be our first year of like an actual sustainable young adults ministry at the church, and kind of taking a little bit of some church stuff, programming kind of things, and adapting some outdoor ministry into it and pulling it in, but not making it so much like, oh man, it's all about outdoor ministry, or oh, it's all so much about church. And so we have the two core things that are happening for young adults is Bible study on Tuesday nights, where they come and we kind of have a series that we're going through, and we're just teaching them basic biblical things. And so our process for them in those Bible studies is taking either people that are brand new to faith or still searching, because we've had people walk through, this is what's blowing me away, walk through the doors, I don't know if I really want this Jesus thing, sit down and listen, and months later go, I want my life to be that. Wow. And so it's been amazing to see, just by teaching basics and kind of giving them like a new, fresh perspective on what God's word really looks like, is like they're just like, I want that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was what that was. And so that's Tuesday nights. And so what we're doing is, most people have a somewhat of a foundation, a concrete foundation poured. Young adults we're starting to build the walls of the house here, the Lord's house for them, and that they can live in and be surrounded and be protected by the Lord. And so we're building up these solid walls for them, and that they're going to grow out as adults and continue to live in this house and strengthen this house and care for this house. And so if we just simply do the glitzy, glamorous thing, then we're simply just basically building them a yurt that's not going to sustain it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yurts are cool, but you can't live in a yurt all of life. And so sorry to all those tiny home people that are listening right now. I just thought about that. Anyway, and then the other part of it is this 5 weeks. Every 6 months, we're going to do a 5-week discipleship training, where they're going to not only, they still go to the Tuesday night thing, but they're going to come over here on Wednesday nights and do this discipleship thing and use the Tuesday night as their means to practice what they're learning. Inside that discipleship part is a outdoors element of taking them and, immersing them in God's creation, where they can sit and listen and practice that same model that Christ practiced. I'm going to go and I'm going to retreat, and then I'm going to come back, kind of thing. And so helping them understand discipleship isn't about grinding it out. It's about retreating, filling up your cup with the Lord, and then coming back and giving that back to the people that you're entrusted with. Because if you just keep hitting the pavement and pounding the pavement and grinding away at it, well, what does grinding do? It grinds you to next to nothing. And you'll be ineffective. You'll be worn out. And so helping them see that. And so they're going to get to practice this and then pull people in, new people, as they meet them at work and school and wherever they're at. And so our objective is to, at 30, hand them off into the church as effective church leaders, adult leaders in the church. So stopping the cycle of triage and starting to fill it back up with people that are going to be growing your church, versus coming in going, I've just wasted my 20s and I'm 30 or 40 and I need help, please. My life's a wreck. Kind of thing. And so that's what we want to stop doing. We'll always have triage. It'll never go away. But we need more people to help with the triage than we do than the opposite side, where we have more triage and not enough people to help. We're overwhelmed, kind of thing. So, man,
I love your heart behind that, and I love how, because a lot of times, when there's when there's not that intentionality like you have, a lot of nonprofits or parachurch ministries can often get to that point where they get so big that they're just kind of having to maintain themselves. And what you guys are doing, and which is what I think the parachurches were kind of created for, is to help be a conduit to say, like, hey, no, we're going to give to the local church. We're going to play our part, do what God has equipped us to do, and we're going to give back and serve the local church through how He has equipped us. And I love how you're doing that. Because a lot of times they can be seen as kind of competing against one another, and you're hand in hand with them. And I think that's praise the Lord, man. That's awesome. And one thing that you had talked about with the other day when we were just kind of conversing, is that's actually a pretty that's a core value of yours, is you're searching out chapter members, right? Or chapter leaders. Is that they have to be connected to a local church, right? And tell everybody what you do. Like go ahead.
We try to do our best at this, but so if anybody's listening and you feel like, hey, that sounds like something I want to do, I want a network of people, I love the outdoors, I love the Bible, I want to do this, it's not as simple as just calling us up and going, I'm in, and we're like, sweet, come along, there is a process to this. We have a great conversation up front. We talk and, just general conversation. Then I hand them our handbook, which explains our acronym that we use, REPS, reach, equip, partner, send. And it goes through, this is what you're getting yourself into, just so you know. So if you get to the end of the handbook and you're still enthusiastic about it, there's an application in the back of it. Fill out that application, send it in to us, and then we'll do a board interview. But in that application, there's what is your local church and who is your pastor? We're going to call and verify this kind of thing. And so, while this is a good thing, we had one tough scenario where we actually had to say not right now to a person. And that was the worst conversation I've ever had to have, of like, they were so on fire for this and they wanted to do it. And we were just like, there's just too many red flags right now. Like, so we gave them if we come up against that, what we do with someone is we say, hey, we want to spend a year with you. Yeah. And we want to walk you through our stuff. We don't want to say no. We just want to spend some more time with you and get to know you guys a little more, walk you through this material, let you guys kind of, what do you think about this stuff? And then we'll reevaluate in a year. And so more often than not, they say no and they move along. But yeah, so we double check on their local church, and we want them, if they don't have a source, because we can't always be there for them. Yeah. So they have to have a source of a good community of believers that are surrounding them, encouraging them, and equipping them. So we rely heavily on them being an active member in their local church to sustain them doing a fully packed adventure ministry chapter. Because if we strip the local church away from it, then that person is relying on us. Mm-hmm. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to pull people from where they are and get them plugged into a local church. And that's what we want to do. And so we want to support the local church, not replace it at all. So.
Yeah. That's so good, man. I think it speaks to your heart for shepherding people. That's our biggest desire as leaders of others, especially as we, and it's kind of sad to say this, but it's like, especially as disciple makers, like all of us should be disciple makers, but the vast majority of the Western church doesn't focus on making disciples. That's a sad thing to say, but at the heart of that is having a heart to shepherd somebody towards Christ and towards a deeper and more intimate and abiding relationship with Christ. And that's in your vetting process, man. That's an amazing thing to see. And I hope that as our listeners, maybe even our listeners are kind of in the same boat as you, maybe they have a nonprofit that they have, or maybe they're wanting to start one. And I hope that they'll take that from you and use the same thing there as well in their vetting process. Man, that's so cool, man. Before we go on here, I like to ask people, and what is one experience that stands out in your mind? Could be your own experience. It could be an experience of another person that you were guiding on a bikepacking trip, or any kind of just wilderness trip. What is one experience that stands out in your mind as a moment where somebody with a switch was flipped in their mind and they just realized, oh man, like this is what God has done for me, or this is what he helped get me through?
I don't know if there's really like one scenario. But so I hate to be the person that answers it this way, because you asked for one scenario, but I'm going to give you lots.
That's okay.
This happens every time we do one of these trips. They come out here just like guns a-blazing. I've been training for this. I'm so ready, kind of in that selfish mode of like, I'm ready to make sure everybody knows that I am the best rider here and I'm going to crush it kind of thing. And just so the listeners know, we're all for all outdoors, not just riding, but we just happen mountain biking always ends up being the thing and anybody does. So if you're a hiker and you want to do, we accept all outdoor enthusiasts. Anyway, so it's somewhere around like the first or second night where they see this, they see servanthood displayed to them, that they start moving from I'm selfish to, wow, I just like that wrecked my world. Like I just watched men serve each other throughout an entire trip, whether it just be stopping when someone has a flat instead of going, hey, good luck, we'll meet you at the top. Like 3 people just dumped everything they were doing and fixed the bike and moved along. Or hey, someone was suffering when they come into camp, we all just jump in and we start helping put up the tent for them, ask them to sit down, we'll grab you a meal, we'll cook you, we'll warm some water for you so you can get your nice delicious mountain house meal prepared. So it's just those, you just start seeing all these little light bulbs happening for everybody of like, that's what this trip's about, and by the end of it, they're just so, I want more of that. That was so much fun to be around people that want to champion me and champion other people, and not just put our heads down and grind out miles kind of thing. And so so I'll do this twofold. One experience that really just rocked my world happened for me, actually. So I'm 10 years into ministry, and God still continues to challenge me and open my mind to new things. And so there was a person that showed up on our most recent trip that I was just like, man, Lord, you really had to put that person on this trip, right? That man made my life just rough for a lot of years, and now he's going to be on this trip. And so I was just, really wrestling with that. And I just came to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to swallow my pride. I'm just going to try to engage as much as possible, whether it's just a simple hi, how's your day going, whatever I'm doing. And so I did that. And more or less, I don't say I did that. The Lord pushed me and challenged me to do that. Let's back up and say that, because that's what happened. And so I'm driving home from the trip, and the last person I ever expected to text me was that person. I got home, I looked at my phone, and that person had texted me and said, this is like the first time I've ever received a message from him of like, thank you, that was a great time. I'd never received anything from that. There was always criticism, it was always rebuking, it was always a challenge. And they just simply said, thank you for a good time this weekend, had a blast, and I was just, man, God, you continue to still amaze me and challenge me and push me out of my comfort zone. And so it's been like, don't ever think that you're going to continue to learn things as you see people learning things. And so, there's, when you can get people away from things and in creation and you start serving them, it's like all the stuff that the world has been pushing them and telling them they have to do just starts like slowly drifting off, and they become this person that's more willing to receive all those things and receive what God has been trying to put in their pathway kind of thing. And so
that's so good. That is so good. I love how God continues to teach us. Like there's no point that we just arrive, right? We got it all. Like no, man, we're always learning. And I love that so much. Well, David, before we hop off here, man, how can people get a hold of you? Whether they want to follow your ministry more, whether they want to come and be a part of what you're doing, how can they find you?
Go to fullypacked.org. That's FULLYPACKED.org. You guys can message us through there. You can follow us on Instagram. It's at FPAMUSA. Or you can follow me personally, and you can send me direct message. My Instagram is at David Wildman, but Wildman is spelled WYLDMAN, because apparently everyone loves that as a nickname, Wildman. So I had to use Y instead of I. So David Wildman with the Y. So and then just connect those ways. We're on social media a lot, so just follow along and just join us on the journey. And then if anybody's wondering what is chapter-based ministry or outdoor ministry and they want to know a little more about that, find us. You can get on the website and request our material, and we can send it to them, and they can kind of get a snapshot into what does it look like. And then we love having phone conversations or person to person if we're near somebody, and just getting to talk to them and share with them and help them realize anybody can do this. If you believe in God, then anybody can do personal ministry, right? And so just stripping it down to such simple basic steps and getting going kind of thing. So
and I'll be sure and add all of those contact points in the show notes for you listeners now, and you can just I'll link it right to him, and you guys will be able to click and go. Man, David, thank you so much for your time today, man. I'm excited about your ministry. I'm excited about what the Lord's doing there, and I'm excited to see where He takes you guys from here. It's really cool to see what you're doing, man. I'm really encouraged by that. So I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me on. Great conversation, and any other time you need someone to fill a spot, just holler at me. I love these conversations, and we can talk around anything you want. So that'd be great.
Absolutely, man. Well, man, I appreciate your time today, and hope you have a good weekend with your family. And I'm sure we'll be connecting soon.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the One Man in His Wilderness podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show today and were encouraged by our friend's story and ministry. Be sure to head to our website to check out the show notes for today's episode. And for more content directed at church leaders, you can find us at www.pauljwingfield.com. And if you could do us one favor before you leave, go ahead and subscribe to our show so you can be notified every time a new episode airs. Until next time, we hope you'll go out and find your wilderness.